Good morning, class. Everybody stand, let us pray. Randy will lead the prayer. Okay, you may take your seats. Now, let's check your attendance first. You may say present if your name is called, okay? Okay. First, Sandra, Jasmine, Melody, Pritzy Go. Okay. So now, in my class, I want you all to know that I have class rules. So, expected that during my class, I want you all to focus. So, I have here an acronym focus. So, focus, F. Focus your attention in the lesson and participate actively in class discussions. So, during my class, I want you all to have the attention in me and actively participate for learning. Next is for O. Organize your materials and workspace to ensure efficient and productive learning. So for your convenience, I want you to organize your materials, your things, in order for you to learn productively. Next is cooperate respectfully with your classmates, offering help and accepting assistance when needed. So in my class, it is what do you call that one? It is implemented or it encouraged for you to cooperate with your class respectfully, and of course in accepting assistance to your classmates when it is needed. Or you can ask me for anything assistance. So next is understand and utilize your time effectively, completing assignments promptly and managing your workload. So as for me, I don't like a student who are procrastinating their activities. I want it to, when I say pass, you need to pass it. Okay? So last is stay on task and avoid distractions, maintaining a positive and focused learning environment. So in my class, we need to avoid distractions in order to learn productively, and of course, we should encourage or we should show a positive learning environment for a great learning for all of us. So, are we clear to my classroom rules? Can you abide these rules that I've implemented? Okay, thank you. So today, we will have another lesson. But before going to the discussion, we will have an activity first. So, I have here, or I prepared a short video clip entitled Sa Pula Sa Puti. So, for our activity, after watching, I will be asking you 2 questions. Okay? So, that was the story all about Sa Pula Sa Puti. So, for the first question, did you all like the story? Okay, good to know. For the second question, what do you think, or what is the story all about? In your own understanding after watching the movie, what is the story all about? Yes, Sandra. Very good. That is all about the story, Sa Pula Sa Puti. Okay, did you get? So now, let's proceed to our discussion. Our topic for today is all about dramatic poetry. Dramatic poetry. So in your own understanding, or in your own opinion, what do you think is dramatic poetry? Yes, Melody. Very good. So, dramatic poetry is a form of written in verse and meant to be recited in public or acted out. So, it is a form. So, dramatic poetry is a form of poetry which is written. So, one example of dramatic poetry is the very famous, of course, Romeo and Juliet. That is another example of dramatic poetry. So, for you, give me some example of dramatic poetry. Very good. So, In dramatic poetry, there are 5 types or 5 forms. The first form is the comedy. Can anyone who can read what is comedy? Yes, Sandra. Thank you, Sandra. You may take your seat. So, the word comedy comes from the Greek term which is komos, meaning festivity or revelry. In simple term, it means a grand celebration such as partying. Comedy is usually a light and written with a purpose for, of course, amusing or entertaining the audience. So its purpose is entertaining, which makes the audience laugh, and since it is comedy, it is usually has a happy ending. So, example of a comedy is A Midsummer Night's Dreams by William Shakespeare. So, this is an example of a comedy because the story focuses on entertaining the audience and making them laugh. That's why this story by William Shakespeare is an example of a comedy. Anyone knows the story, or anyone who read or knows the story? Okay. Since some of you knows the story, I think you all know why this story is an example of a comedy. So the second form of the dramatic poetry is the melodrama. Anyone who can read what is melodrama? Yes, Melody. Thank you, Melody. So, melodrama is used in musical play with opera. It is used to, or it is related to tragedy, the same as farce is to comedy. So, melodrama arouses an immediate emotion and is usually sad. So, the melodrama always speaks or depicts the emotion, which is sad. But there is a happy ending for the principal character. So in this form, the principal character has its happy ending. So a perfect example of this melodrama is the Pygmalion, because Pygmalion features the high emotion impact of the story. And Eliza, if you know the story, the character considers as the principal character have her freedom, which could probably be a happy ending of the play. That's why Pygmalion is a perfect example of a melodrama. So the third dramatic poetry is the tragedy. Please read, Jasmine. Thank you. So tragedy involves the hero struggling mightily the dynamic forces he meets, death or ruin without success and satisfaction obtained by the protagonist. So, a perfect example of the tragedy is, let's go back to the Romeo and Juliet. So, what do you think is the tragic part of that story? So, the tragic part of the story is when the misconception in the scene 3, when Romeo is trying to break the Capulet, but Romeo is disturbed by the Paris and reaches Juliet's body and he drinks the poison because he thinks that Juliet was dead, which made it a tragic part of the story because the misconception between the two of the protagonists that made them kill themselves, which arouses the intense emotion or the intense trajectory of the story. That is tragedy. So, the fourth form of dramatic poetry is the farce. Kindly read, Melody. Thank you, Melody. So, farce is an exaggerated comedy which seeks to arouse laughable lines or situations. These are too ridiculous to be true, that the characters seem to be caricatures or exaggerated features. Since it is an exaggerated, of course, it is unbelievable. That is farce. So an example of farce is the Comedy of Errors by William Shakespeare. It is an example of a farce because this story, it is linked to the motion of the two identity and mistaking the identity of the story. It is all about the two sets of identified twins as existing in one place at a time, which makes it an mistakenly identity or identified. And the story, or the title of the story, makes it sense that it is a farce. So the fifth dramatic poetry is the social poems. Kindly read Krishna. So, social poems can be social poems. Social poems. Kindly read Krishna. Thank you. So, social poems can be either pure or comic or tragic. It is also pictures the life of today, which consists or aims to bring changes in social conditions. This is to express about people's emotional thoughts or beliefs. So a perfect example of the form social poems is My Last Duchess by Robert Browning, if you know this story. It is a social poem because it highlights the societal norms of the time, and it expresses the people's emotion, in which the monologue of the bomb or of the story expresses the controlling and possessive nature of the man in a position of power, and which demonstrates the following of the social poem, which also can be relevant socially or even in our community. That is social poems. These are the 5 forms of dramatic poetry. So, is there any questions? Clarifications? Since there is no clarifications, I assume that you all understand what is dramatic poetry and its forms. So, let's just have a short recap. So, may I have Melody? So, can you recall what are the 5 forms of dramatic poetry without even seeing or watching this on the board? Yes, you. Very good. Thank you so much, Melody, for listening. So this time, I want you to get a 1/2 sheet of paper, lengthwise. Did you get that? Okay. Write your name, section, and date for today. Already done? Okay. So, for 5 points and in not more than 5 sentences, I want you to differentiate the tragedy from comedy. So, I will give you 3 minutes to answer. Is that enough? Okay, 3 minutes is enough. Here. You can start answering. Thank you. Okay, 3 minutes is done. Pass your papers. So again, do you have any clarifications, questions regarding to our lesson? Okay, none. So class, that ends our lesson for today. I hope you learned something. Goodbye and see you tomorrow.